This story is generated and narrated by AI. If you notice any strange voice glitches or pauses, feel free to leave a comment. Your feedback helps improve future videos. Have you ever read something that felt like it was written just for you? Would you keep reading if the paper started breathing back? I arrived in Romania under gray skies and the smell of wet pine. The train ride from Cluj had been long and mostly silent, except for the occasional crackle of the speaker overhead, announcing towns I couldn't pronounce. When the conductor gestured toward my stop, St. Georgiu de Mont, he didn't speak. He just pointed to the mist outside and made the sign of the cross. I stepped onto the platform with my backpack and a leather satchel containing two things: my research grant documents and a photograph of the burned asylum ruins I had come here to study. The asylum, Sanatoriul Văduva, had been abandoned since the 1930s after a fire gutted its west wing. But according to the university's archive, not everything had burned. Inside a locked vault at a local municipal building, there were still surviving documents, patient notes, treatment logs, and something marked only as Rumel 13, personal correspondenta. That was what I had come to translate. I met Elena that afternoon. She stood waiting in the gravel lot near the town hall, dressed in a brown coat and worn boots, holding a paper folder wrapped in twine. "Are you the London man?" she asked in crisp, lightly accented English. "Yes." "I'm the researcher for Cambridge." She didn't smile. She just handed me the folder. "Don't read it in the dark." The boarding house was 5 minutes' walk from the hall, a low stone building surrounded by thistle and fog. The innkeeper was absent, just a key on the desk and a handwritten note: "Take the corner room." Facing east, I unpacked slowly, set up my laptop, notebooks, and recording gear, then placed the folder on the desk like it might bite me. I didn't open it until after sunset. The first thing that struck me was the smell: old paper, smoke, and a faint trace of something floral, lavender maybe, or the ghost of it. Inside were around 50 handwritten pages, bundled together by rusted clasps. Each page was dated between October 1896 and February 1897, each signed by the same name, Dr. Anka Văduva. She hadn't been a patient. She had been the head physician. Her handwriting was precise, almost mechanical in its formality. The subject of room 13 continues to exhibit unnatural self-awareness. They speak of events yet to occur and refer to visitors who are not present. I remain unconvinced of a diagnosis grounded in hysteria alone. The letters were clinical, but something else pushed beneath the surface: a tone, a voice that didn't match the stiff language. Some entries weren't addressed to colleagues or superiors. They were written as if she were speaking to someone directly. "You will return, even if you do not know it yet." There are fingerprints on the glass, and they are not mine. That line made my breath pause, not for what it said, but for how it made me feel, as if someone had placed a hand lightly on my shoulder while I read. I set the pages down, turned on all the lights in the room, and checked the mirror above the dresser. It was empty, of course, but I found myself watching it for a little too long. The next day, I met Elena at the small village library, a one-room structure filled with dust and aging Romanian encyclopedias. She had already made coffee and was reading a printed copy of one of the asylum's blueprints. "Did you find anything strange yet?" she asked without looking up. "How do you mean?" She shrugged. "They say if you read the letters for too long, they read you back." I half laughed, but it sounded wrong in the quiet of the room. "I noticed something odd," I said. "One of the letters, it mentions someone returning, but it's written as if it's personal, not clinical." Elena folded the blueprint and looked at me with careful eyes. "Was the name written?" "No, but..." I paused. I pulled out the last page of the set. the one I hadn't fully read yet. At the very bottom, in smaller ink, almost etched into the paper, was my name. Full name, middle initial, and all spelled correctly, in handwriting that matched the rest. I hadn't told it to anyone. Not even the grant paperwork listed it fully. I stared at the page until my eyes watered, then looked at Elena. She had already stepped back. "I told you," she said softly. "Don't read it in the dark." That night I couldn't sleep, not for the usual reasons, not even because of the letters. There was a sound coming from the wall behind the desk, not a mouse, not a pipe, a scraping sound, slow, deliberate, like a pencil dragged across wood. I got out of bed, turned on the lamp, and looked at the letters again. The date on the top page had changed. It now read 28 May 2025. The date on the letter stared back at me. 28 May 2025, the exact day I was reading it. Not typed, not stamped, handwritten, in the same faded ink, the same rigid strokes as every other page. I checked the other letters again, flipping one by one through the bundle. Dates from the 1890s, consistent, neat, sealed in their century, only that one page had changed. I told myself it had to be an archival error, or maybe a joke, some Romanian intern with a dark sense of humor, but the rational explanation didn't stick. Not after I looked closer. The phrasing had changed too. It now read, "Your hand shakes when you read this, but you won't tell Elena, not yet. You're afraid she'll confirm it's real." My mouth went dry, and yes, my hand was shaking. I locked the letter away in my suitcase, shoved it beneath my bed. Then I stayed up all night with the lights on, staring at the window and the mirror, checking them in turns like some ritual. When dawn broke, I felt no relief. By morning, I knew two things. First, I had to verify the ink. Second, I needed to know more about Dr. Ankovaduva. Elena agreed to help me with the research. She wasn't convinced by my story, but she was curious and strangely calm together. We visited a university archive in Alba Iulia that held a few local medical registries from the early 20th century. We found her name on a staff list from 1895, chief physician, specialized in experimental psychotherapeutic practice. No further records. But what struck me most was the photograph. Grainy, sepia, but her face clear, sharp cheekbones, formal posture. Eyes that didn't match her expression. Eyes that looked as if they knew. I leaned in closer and then froze. Around her neck, barely visible under the starched collar, was a chain with a pendant in the shape of a room number, etched in iron, 13. I didn't say anything to Elena that day. I couldn't. I just asked her to make a copy of the image and left. Back in my room, I reopened the suitcase. The letter had changed again. It now had no date, just a single line scrawled at the top. "What is behind your wall is not inside your room." Yet, I dropped the letter, ran to the desk, and pressed my ear to the wall. Silence. Then, a soft, deliberate knock. 3 times, slow, like someone rapping a fingernail on old wood. I stumbled back, waited for the knock to repeat. It didn't, just that one time. I didn't sleep that night either, but this time it wasn't just fear. It was something else, something harder to admit. I was beginning to feel drawn to the letters, as if each page, however wrong, needed to be read. The next day, I asked Elena if she knew the location of the original asylum ruins. She hesitated. "Most of it's gone," she said. "They rebuilt over the foundations. It's a community center now, but the basement's still there, sealed off." I asked if she could take me there. She didn't answer right away. Then she said, "Only if you promise not to speak while we're inside." We drove out the next afternoon. The building stood on a small hill outside the village, near the tree line. Modern walls, but something about the structure felt off, like it was wearing a mask. Inside, children's paintings and exercise mats covered the rooms. But in the rear corridor, behind a false wall, was an old iron door, rusted but intact. Room 13 had been in the basement, Elena told me. This door led down. She turned on her phone's flashlight and gestured for me to follow. We descended slowly. Each step down felt heavier than the last. At the bottom, the air changed, cooler, thicker, like stone that remembered too much. There were no lights, just old tile, mold, and broken restraints half hidden under dust, and at the end of the corridor, a door with no handle, just a faint number burned into the wood, 13. I reached for it, but Elena grabbed my wrist. She didn't speak, just shook her head once. I stepped back. Before we turned to leave, I looked again at the door. For a moment, I swear, I saw a movement underneath it, like shadows sliding just beneath the frame. Not shapes, not bodies, patterns, like ink poured through water. That night, I found a new page on my desk, not in the suitcase, not folded in the folder, just sitting there, waiting. You saw the door. You didn't open it. But that won't save you. The 13th room was never inside the asylum. It's inside you. I couldn't move for a long time. Then I did the only thing I could think of. I burned the pages, all of them. But the next morning, they were back, neatly stacked on the desk, no burn marks, no ash, and the top page was blank until I touched it. Lines began to write themselves. In slow, curling script, we begin again. I stopped contacting Elena after that. Not because I didn't trust her, but because I was starting to lose trust in myself. Every time I looked at the mirror in my rented room, I saw something off. At first it was minor, a twitch in the corner of the reflection's eye, a delay in the head tilt, a misalignment in how the lips moved. I told myself I was imagining it, but the mirror was trying to prove otherwise. One morning, while shaving, I saw my reflection blink twice. Too fast, too exact, too mechanical. It was mimicking me, but not quite in sync. Not like a delay in video, more like a creature trying to imitate how I moved. I covered the mirror with a towel that night, but when I woke up, the towel was folded on the floor and written on the mirror, and the fog from my breath was, "You are late to room 13. I left the apartment that afternoon, went to a hotel in Cluj, told myself I just needed a weekend away from the town, the asylum, the archive, but the letters followed me, in my suitcase, between shirts, under my pillow, inside the Gideon Bible drawer. I tore one open, hands trembling. This one was different, longer, no greeting, no date. Do you remember the basement corridor? It remembers you. The door was never a barrier. It was a question. And now, you are the answer. I threw it in the hotel sink, doused it in soap and scalding water, but the ink held, like blood soaked into skin. That night, I dreamed of the corridor. Only this time, the door was open, and something behind it spoke, not in words, but in images, pressed into my thoughts like thumbprints into clay. I saw a man, curled on the floor of a padded cell, wearing a coat that matched mine, reading a letter aloud to himself, over and over, until the words started writing on his skin. I woke up gasping, and found that I'd scrawled words on the wall beside my bed, with a pen I didn't remember holding. The letters were shaky, uneven, but legible. I am the 13th. I went to the bathroom, turned on all the lights, looked into the mirror, and this time, I saw my reflection smiling, but I wasn't. I screamed, not out of fear, but from the pressure building behind my eyes, as if someone else was trying to blink through them. I staggered back, hit the sink, fell to the floor, and saw, just for a second, a shadow move across the mirror's surface, not behind me, inside it. The next morning, I called Elena. I told her everything, or almost everything. She was quiet for a long time. Then she said, "There's an old saying here. Not many people remember it anymore. If you dream of the 13th room, don't knock. If you enter it, don't speak. And if you see yourself inside it, don't leave." I asked where it came from. She hesitated, then told me the part that chilled me more than anything else. It's carved into the basement wall, behind the mirror. I begged her to go check, to take a picture, anything. She refused. "Whatever this is," she said, "it shows you, not me." That night, I didn't bother unpacking. I went back to the town, back to my apartment, and there, sitting on the desk, was the mirror. I never brought it, never owned one like it, but it was there, same size, same frame. Same faint symbol etched in the top right corner, 13. I knew I had to finish this. I waited until nightfall, then packed a flashlight and walked to the hill. The community center was dark, closed, but the rear door had been left ajar, as if someone expected me. The stairs to the basement groaned with each step. The flashlight flickered twice, then steadied. The air below felt thicker than last time, not just heavy, occupied. I walked past the old restraints, the moldy wall, and stood before the door. The number had deepened since last time, like the wood had been reburned 13. I raised my hand and knocked once. The door opened. The door swung inward on its own. The hinges didn't creak. They sighed, as if relieved that I'd finally arrived. Inside was darkness, but not the kind you see. It was the kind you feel, like stepping into a memory you tried to forget, but never could. The flashlight died 2 steps in. No sound, no echo, just the sensation of walls closing in, even though I couldn't see them. Then, a light, faint, greenish, pulsing. It came from a small table in the center of the room, and on it lay a single sheet of paper. I didn't want to approach, but my feet disagreed. Every step toward the table felt like wading through syrup, like time itself resisted the motion. I reached the table and saw the letter. It was blank at first, but then the ink began to bloom, line after line, writing itself in front of me. To the 13th, welcome home. You have done well to return. The ink kept flowing. Each of us was chosen, 12 before you, 1 for each room, and now you, for the mirror. I looked up. The walls had changed. Each held a mounted mirror, all cracked, all angled slightly toward the center, and each one held a face. Not mine, not entirely. Faces like mine, but older, thinner, bruised, burned, rotting. Some smiled, some wept, all stared back. The letter pulsed in my hands, like it had veins. Words kept forming, but now they were inside my head, not just on paper. You are not the reader. You are the page. And I felt something crawl across my back, a heat, a pressure, then pain, like hot needles pressing through skin. I looked down at my arm and watched as ink appeared on it, lettering, familiar, my own handwriting. The words I had translated, the names, the cries, the warnings, they were rewriting themselves onto me. Then I heard it, A voice behind me, whispering, low, wet, ancient, turn around. I didn't. I couldn't, because I knew, if I saw what spoke, I'd never leave this room again. But my body betrayed me. My neck twisted, slowly, like someone else was guiding it, and I saw myself. But not from a mirror. The thing wore my face, perfectly, except the eyes. They were all pupil, like two holes punched through flesh. It smiled, not cruelly, just knowingly. The mirror doesn't reflect, it remembers. I dropped the letter, but it clung to my fingers like webbing, and the ink began moving, crawling up my wrists, my chest, my neck. My last thought before I lost consciousness was, I was never the translator. I was the translation. When I woke, I was lying on a cot, white walls, sterile air, a small barred window. I thought, maybe I had dreamed it all. Then a voice spoke, outside the door, English, with a soft Romanian accent. Patient 13 is stable, appears cooperative, no signs of violent tendencies. I ran to the mirror on the far wall and saw, not me. He looked like me, but older, faded. The eyes were still mine, but the expression was not. He looked trapped. A nurse entered the room, smiled. Time for your medication, Mr. Thorne. I tried to tell her my name wasn't Thorne. I tried to scream, but no sound came out. She handed me a pill cup and a letter. The handwriting was mine. To whoever reads this, if the letters start speaking to you, don't answer. If the mirror smiles, don't smile back. And if you hear a knock, don't open the door. Too late. I already had. If you enjoyed this descent into Romania's forgotten corridors, leave a comment below. Would you have opened the door or left the 13th room sealed forever? Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the bell for more haunted tales across Europe. This is Whispers in the Shadows, where the silence is never empty.